Hello everyone, it's me, TheBladeGamer, of course, and I'm joined by my friend Eric, also known as TicTwitch,
Hi.
and we will be reviewing Nintendo's E3 press conference. Well, it wasn't really a press conference, it was a direct, so they didn't have as much cringe going on in their videos as, Ubisoft or EA or anything like that, but it was a very solid event and pretty straightforward, actually. So let's just get right into the details. One thing that we're just going to knock out of the way real quick is the Rabbids Mario game. We mentioned it in the Ubisoft press conference review. We both really enjoy the concept. Mario style XCOM seems great. The sense of humor seems to be there. Honestly, like a crossover game like this, it seems to hit the nail on the head on pretty much every level.
Yeah, it's not a console seller for me. But if I had a Switch, I definitely would pick it up if I saw it on sale because $80, well, Canadian, little difference here. $80 Canadian seems rather expensive for a game like that I
Yeah,
might try and have fun with. But
definitely.
it looks like it has so much potential, and I don't see much design flaws going into that game as Nintendo is overlooking it, even though Ubisoft is developing it.
Yep,
So I have very high expectations, and I'm pretty sure they'll deliver on it.
definitely. The next thing that they showed off was Xenoblade 2. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles is honestly a massive game series for Nintendo. I feel like a lot of people really underappreciate the series right now based on the fact that the Wii had a very limited release. So buying it for the Wii is extremely expensive. You can buy it for the 3DS as well. However, it has to be played on a new 3DS. It can't be played on the old 3DS systems because they're not powerful enough. Um, but the bottom line is that this is a massive JRPG series that is critically regarded as the new way to make a JRPG. Um, the traditional mechanics have been stuck to for over 2 or 3 decades, and this game shook that up big time. So the fact that Xenoblade 2 was shown off was great. And the fact that it still has a holiday 2017 release date as of right now is also a big deal. There are so many games coming out for Nintendo Switch right now that this still having a 2017 release launch window is fantastic.
Is
Now,
the original Xenoblade on the Switch?
it is not. I will be shocked if they don't port it at least in some capacity to the Switch by that time.
As
Um,
I do plan on picking up a Switch over the summer, and Xenoblade was definitely one of the games I wanted
yeah,
to try.
yeah,
Xenoblade 2, if I do get a chance to play number one, it's going to be a game I'll actually go out of my way to pick up.
yeah, yeah. Now, the less interesting part about that was the voice acting.
Ugh.
Um, the English dub sounded absolutely horrible. The actor sounded unenthusiastic, and I can only hope that they give you the option to use the Japanese dub because honestly, like that was if that is the first impression that people get from Xenoblade, having not played or seen Xenoblade 1, they're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, with that, I think it's great that it's still coming out in 2017. The next thing they showed off is Kirby. Now, Kirby is a game that is usually not put on systems until the end of its life cycle. So the fact that Kirby is coming out this early surely means that the Switch is doomed. But in all seriousness, it looks to be a great game. The Wii had a Kirby game that was four-player co-op, um, and from what I understand, it was really fun and one of the better Kirby games released in recent years. But this one seems to be even more interesting in the sense that you can bring um, enemies to your side of the battlefield and cooperatively play with you, even if you don't have other friends to play with. And on top of that, they also seem to be bringing back some of the power combining features of Kirby 64. And Kirby 64 is personally my favorite game because of the fact that you could combine your powers into more useful ones.
I
So
felt that sorry, it looked very similar to Kirby 64 in my eyes.
yeah, it did. It looks beautiful too. Um, Honestly, I think it's going to be a good game if it comes out in early 2018 or summer 2018. I think that it'll be a great little game to play over the summer.
Hmm.
One of the big announcements that they showed off is a new Pokemon RPG coming to the Switch. Now, last week Nintendo had a Pokemon Direct, which announced Ultra Sun and Moon and Pokken Deluxe coming to the Nintendo Switch. Now, honestly, I'm surprised that they didn't save both of those announcements for E3, considering that the Pokemon Direct was just last week or 2 weeks ago. But they did finally announce a Pokemon RPG coming to the Switch. Now, they did not mention if this would be main series, and they did not mention if this would be a Shadow Pokemon spin-off game again. Personally, I'm hoping for the latter, because I think that I would love to see the Pokemon games eventually come over to the Switch, but I don't really feel like they need to go out of their way to kind of make that a big emphasis. I would love to entirely see a brand new Pokemon RPG, even, as they mentioned in the video, it's going to be over a year away. So I'm excited personally.
This is definitely one of the strong things I think the Switch needs to do to continue its being successful.
Yep.
I honestly really look forward to seeing a Pokemon game on the Switch.
Yep.
Especially if I'm going to be picking up one this summer.
We can only hope that they also port over the other Pokemon games as well.
Maybe. We'll see.
At some point. And then the big of the big announcements, Metroid Prime 4. Now, they did not show any gameplay. Or
much of anything else in that matter.
Yeah. In a sense, the reveal itself was disappointing simply due to the fact that they didn't show any screenshots or gameplay or anything. However, when you saw space, like just in the intro reel, and then it slowly came into the Metroid shape we're all familiar with, it looks like the screw attack. I'm not sure what that symbol is called. And then the 4. Like, immediately when I saw the 4, I was like, that's Metroid Prime 4. And sure enough, it was Metroid Prime 4. It was announced in development. Now, they did not mention how far in development it was, whether it's something that had just started or something that had been in development for a year. And it's not even being developed by Retro. It's being developed by a brand new studio that is, according to Nintendo, highly talented. And honestly, I cannot be more excited for a game coming to the Switch. Now, Breath of the Wild will probably always be my most hyped game for the Nintendo Switch, but the new Metroid is probably my second most hyped. I played Metroid Prime 1 on the GameCube, never got around to playing 2 or 3, but Metroid Prime 1 just shocked me with how beautiful it was when it came out. Like, it was one of the few games that had such polish on release that was unrivaled at the time. Like, I remember you would go into an underground cave, the Magmore Caverns, you'd walk over a steam jet, and the steam on your visor would cause you to see a reflection of your character's face in the mask. Like, the level of detail that they put in those games and the amount of love that they put in those games to bring over all the classic Metroid mechanics to a 3D game was so apparent in Prime 1 that I cannot wait for Prime 4. I think it's a breath of fresh air, and it's something that's long overdue.
I, on the other hand, don't have much experience with the Metroid series, and it's never really captivated me. So the fact that they showed nothing in the sense of any content for it, I was underwhelmed. I have no interest for it, and nor did it gain any interest out of me.
Yeah.
If they come out with a gameplay trailer and it seems really interesting, I won't criticize it for it. But until then, I don't really have much of an interest in it.
Yeah. Not to mention, it's probably going to get a 2019 release window.
Which also I think is just well, I don't blame Nintendo for mentioning it, because that's definitely something they should do, but it doesn't get any sort of hype train from me, really.
Yeah. Then they showed off a new Yoshi game. Now, Yoshi recently had a game, Yoshi's Woolly World, where Yoshi was kind of in that yarn art style, like Kirby's Epic Yarn. And they seem to basically be building on that series. It almost looks like there might even be co-op involved, but it's a really charming looking game. And it definitely looks like it's intended for kids once more. Honestly, it gives me kind of a Paper Mario vibe, although I know it's not going to be quite as in-depth as the Paper Mario series was. It definitely seems like a really cool concept where they look at everything from a unique perspective, which is what Nintendo is best at.
Mm-hmm.
Then they showed off more Fire Emblem Warriors. Surprisingly, they didn't show any gameplay. They only showed, the story trailer, kind of. They did go into the gameplay later during the Treehouse event, And I mean, based on what happened with Hyrule Warriors, I expect that this will be a well-received game. In fact, it might even be more well-received due to the fact that Fire Emblem has an even more expansive cast than the Zelda series that could be really fun to play around with. Honestly, I think it's just a great addition to the series and something that will be fun to play while we're waiting for Mario Odyssey to come out.
It potentially has. It's potentially something that could get me interested in the Fire Emblem series, as I've never really wanted to pick it up as much.
Yep.
But same with Hyrule Warriors. I think it's a cool concept. We'll see. It's definitely something I'll try out. I don't know if I'll go out of my way to buy it though.
Definitely. The next thing that they announced is DLC is coming to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I am going to briefly mention that I have not yet played Breath of the Wild, nor do I intend to until the winter when I have the opportunity to meet up with some friends and actually play it with them in person. I am extremely hyped for the game. Critic reviews herald it as the best Zelda since Ocarina of Time. And the fact that it's getting 2 DLC packs is a great thing. I think that this is something that Zelda has needed for a long time, and I honestly can't wait. And then they also announced a new line of Breath of the Wild amiibo coming soon, which, again, I think is a great thing because even as just collector's items, it's great. But that Zelda amiibo is also going to be able to be used in other games as well, like Smash Bros. Or Skyrim, for example. They showed that, and then a couple other things. I just honestly think it's a great idea.
As in terms of the actual like DLC, I actually watched the trailer that they showed. It's interesting. I never even thought of having DLC for Zelda.
Yep.
So it's definitely caught my attention right away.
Yep.
I believe it looked like more of a challenge mode sort of thing that
Yep.
when you download it. I plan to get Zelda eventually, and I plan to play through it, and that definitely seems like a interesting thing to pick up.
Yep.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Then they also showed off Rocket League for the Switch. That's not really surprising. Rocket League's a wildly popular game, pretty much across all platforms. It has cross-platform play, which is the big appeal of Rocket League because it's one of the few competitive games where it plays just as well across all platforms because it can be played with a controller. In fact, it's better to be played with a controller than a keyboard. So honestly, it's exciting to see it's coming to Switch, but it's nothing surprising. And then last but not least, they showed off Super Mario Odyssey gameplay. Now, we finally understand what the point of Mario's new hat is. It seems to be that he can possess enemies and objects and use that to his advantage to do more interesting things, do more platforming puzzles, so on and so forth. And honestly, it has me more excited than ever for this game.
It does seem like a really cool concept. I like the idea of controlling things with the hat.
Yep.
So long as they bring new things to every Mario game. Ooh, almost slipped up there. So long as they bring new things to every Mario game, I see no reason not to ignore the series. I think this is one of the coolest concepts they brought to the game in recent years.
Yep, I agree. I have a feeling,
especially with the setting as well. I keep forgetting it's still set in our world technically.
Well, it's not just set in our world; it's set in different worlds. So we have one that's based on Manhattan. We have one that's based on Jurassic times. We have one that might be set in. There's one that's set in kind of a Hispanic culture. It's not it's not Mexico or something like that. It's actually just inspired on it because you see all the Day of the Dead stuff around, and it seems like a really cool concept. I will mention the one thing that I think was kind of lacking is they emphasized the hat power so much that they didn't really show any of the platforming mechanics.
I imagine those are pretty close to any other Mario game.
I agree. I would assume that they're very, very similar, but the platforming mechanics are the most important part of any 3D Mario game. 64 was just pure platforming. Sunshine had the FLUDD. Galaxy had the gravity and the star launching pads and whatnot. This game does seem to have interesting platforming mechanics in the sense you can use your hat to possess a post and then use that to vault yourself upwards like you're a pole vaulter. And I thought that was interesting, but they didn't really show off anything other than the hat possession mechanic, at least not during the press conference itself. And that alone kind of disappointed me a little bit, but honestly, like, the game looks so good, I'm not even upset. And what's even better is they announced that it is coming out in October. That is very, very close. That's 4 months away. The Switch is absolutely killing it this year, and honestly, like, I'm so excited for this game.
It definitely gives me some interest in the Mario series, as I haven't really been interested in it in years, but this game will definitely be a game I will try.
Definitely. All right,
Definitely.
Eric. So if you were to give Nintendo's E3 press conference a letter grade, what would you give it?
B plus.
All right, and I am going to go with an A minus. I think that me and Eric are kind of along the same lines of thinking. For me personally, I was expecting to see more 3DS games. Now, it's important to mention that Nintendo is very clearly trying to kill off the 3DS over time. The 3DS has been out since 2011. It's 6 years old now, and it's even the Pokemon games are starting to run very sluggish on the 3DS systems. It's very obvious that the system is outdated now, and it's clear that Nintendo is focusing solely on the Switch, which is why we're getting so many Switch games. However, the 3DS is getting some very important games very soon, like Ultra Sun and Moon, the new Metroid game. They're remaking Metroid 2 for the 3DS, but they didn't even show it during the press conference. That's disappointing. They have at least 4 or 5 more 3DS games coming out that are worth mentioning before they eventually shift all of their focus to the Switch. I don't think it's disappointing for a Switch owner to see all the Switch games that are coming out and get more information about the games we knew were coming out. But honestly, I do think that the lack of 3DS, the 3DS's presence was not felt at all. And once more, they also didn't announce anything new. Now, it is important to note that Nintendo usually does this with their quarterly press conferences. They usually do 3 or 4 a year, 3 or 4 big ones a year, and they announce what's coming out in the immediate future. And the games that they did announce, the Kirby and Yoshi game, while great, is something that we're definitely going to be seeing again in future press conferences, but they didn't really show any, like I mentioned, screenshots of Metroid, for example, which was a little bit disappointing to fans, but we all know that that's a while off. Honestly, I think Nintendo did what they needed to do here.
The only disappointment I have with Nintendo is just the lack of third party and new IP. We did get Rocket League, which is very nice seeing coming to the Switch, because I think the Switch is probably one of the best. I think it is actually probably the de facto best console for that game.
Yep.
I believe there's one other third-party game, Skyrim, but I already have my qualms with Skyrim. I'm not a huge fan of what Bethesda is doing at the moment, but whatever. But the lack of new IPs or third parties, I think the conference probably should have put a little more emphasis on what they are bringing to the Switch besides their own games.
Yep.
I think Nintendo, if this is probably due to the lack of them actually seeking out other companies to develop for their console, I think they should probably start pushing more of that area, because I really want the Switch to succeed, but a severe lack of third-party games will continue to only make the console appeal to its core audience.
I agree. I think that third party is what Nintendo needs to focus on, and it's a good step that they're starting off strong with Ubisoft and the Rabbids game. The Switch is still selling like hotcakes. It's selling faster than the Wii did in its respective time frame, if I'm not mistaken. And just the sheer amount of first-party support that was demonstrated over these past 4 months since we've known about the Switch's existence is fantastic.
I believe the Switch has the most first-party support out of any of the consoles.
Yes, and it's only within the first 4 months of its life cycle, which is pretty darn impressive. So with that, we will see you in our final E3 video.
Bye!